der zentralen Position. Nur Schwanze an der Vorsicht. Dann ist es Fjørtoft. Er ist im Strafraum. Tor! Tor! Für die Frankfurter Eintracht. 5:1. Herrlich!
Hi and welcome to the German football podcast that we are finally back after a longer break, willingly and unwillingly so. First of all, great to be back talking about the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and we're doing it at the transfer deadline day. So, the both of us, we are following what's happening with your Arsenal, Jorginho, as we speak, on his way to Arsenal. And I guess this is a day where every football fans have a bit hope that suddenly Diego Maradona will raise up for death and play with your team and give you all the success you want in the world. So I think that when people are listening to this, is that if there's going to be a fantastic signing in the German Bundesliga, we have to make a special one tomorrow.
But that we already have some fantastic signings, I would say, by all accounts. Let's start with Cancelo, which was a bit surprising considering, I'd say, the stature Cancelo has at Man City, but also in the Premier League, been a regular feature in Team of the Year, what have you. What does this signing represent for Bayern?
Yeah, first of all, I followed Manchester City as I'm more in the Premier League this season. And I think that Cancelo, as you're saying, been a key figure to how City has been so dominated the last years, because Pep Guardiola has managed to put him in a position, Überzahl, also more people in midfield and so on and so on. But there have been games, and I'm fortunate to sit very close to the pitch when I do work for Viaplay. And he's been a bit out of position suddenly, and you've seen that Guardiola has been more and more frustrated about his role. And if we are to believe the reports, there was a bust up. I guess that is nobody knows, but so we can only speculate. But I think Cancelo won't be happy to be a part-time footballer, as you're saying, been a key figure. And he is a perfect match for Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich can't compete with the Premier League in terms of transfer fees. They can't compete with the so state-funded clubs to get players in. And here they get Cancelo, a player that has a proven record, as they say. He's a great football player. They followed him, and it's a perfect deal for Bayern. They're taking on a 6-month loan with an option to buy 70 million euro, but you got a feeling that is negotiable, that they can get him for cheaper than that. And with Pavard out of form and his head more or less on his way, they say Barcelona, Mazzuari, the other right back. I think this is a great signing for Bayern Munich and a great kind of positivity to a club that has been a bit into negativity in the late weeks.
Let's move on to the other title contender then, Union Berlin, who have also signed someone rather unexpected in Isco. And I remember back when Isco broke through at Malaga, and he was incredible. I mean, he has that style, that ball control that is hard to not fall in love with. What can we expect from this signing? Because as far as matchups go, that is one of the more random ones I've come across in football.
Yeah, but as much as we praise Union Berlin, but I think we have to be realistic. It's not like Isco is going to Union Berlin because he had a chance to play for the big ones in Spain, and it's not the Isco that we know from the past.
Of course.
Having said that, he's coming to a team that has success. They are second in the table. They're main challenger for Bayern again. So I think that, and with Fischer, they had a great coach that got an idea. It's a bit same with Arsenal, because when Arteta says he wants that player because that fits his bill, okay, believe him. You just have to trust him. And it's the same with Fischer. He's done a fantastic job at Union Berlin. And if he feels that kind of player is something I'm missing in my team, then this is great. And it's always great for the Bundesliga. Although sometimes the Bundesliga will get some player for Spain when they're on the way down. We remember Rodriguez some years ago, coming from Real Madrid, was sold in as the biggest signing that Bayern has done since Gerd Müller, to overdo it a bit. But he wasn't even in the squad in the Champions League for Real Madrid in the Champions League final before he came and so on, and it was not a big success. But I think this could be a good one because, as you're saying, ball control, good. He's a guy who seems to be an intelligent player. He will find his role, and for Union Berlin, that is a great star. And if you think of Union Berlin, we know their coach. We know their performances, we know the results, but there's not many well-known players. So I think that the Union Berlin fans, after that derby also, that they will be happy winning the big derby against Hertha Berlin, and now also attract some of the greater names of European football the last 10 years.
It is truly fantastic. And on that topic of the title race, we spoke about Union Berlin, 3 winless before Christmas, now 3 straight wins. Go on top again in the Berlin derby against a struggling Hertha Berlin. Before we go down the list, because I think we should have a little status update now that we have the Bundesliga tighter than ever, and whether we are desperately clinging on to what we hope to be a title race. Let's start then up top with Bayern, and you've discussed that from last week across various channels, also on your channel. What is it with Bayern? Are we looking for a story? Is it just the entire media landscape looking for a story? They're still leading the Bundesliga. They're going to play in the Champions League. They're still in the cup. Mané is coming back. They've sent Cancelo. Are we making a storm in a teacup, so to speak, or are there serious issues going on at Bayern right now?
I think it's yes to every question you just said.
Okay,
because
fair
I
enough.
think that because I think that all neutrals, we would love to see another champion at Bayern. But if Bayern wins it again and again and again, it's well deservedly, and they're still the favorite. But I will try to summarize the negativity around the club now, because it's easy, that cliche, I call them FC Hollywood. But it's not that. I don't think there is more soap opera in Munich than the other teams somehow. But it's much more interesting with Bayern because they are the best team. They have the biggest profile. They have so many leaders in and around the club that talk willingly to the press. Yes, I mean, what starts everything is that you don't win football games. And Bayern Munich, just not only they have to win football games, they have to do with style. They have to do with Bayern way. They have to do with the Bayern DNA. A coach needs to have the Bayern DNA, and that is back to the 70s when it started with with Beckenbauer, with Gerd Müller and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, and some of them are still around in an indirectly way, talking about Beckenbauer, Rummenigge. So then you come into this break that you have Germany is struggling at the World Cup. Germany is struggling at the World Cup based on the core of Bayern players. Remember, everybody said Hansi Flick used to be Bayern coach, then he's a national coach of Germany, and then he take the core of the Bayern team and put it in there, and everybody said, well, that's going to be revenge from the last World Cup. We won't be shite again. We will be good again, which was not happening. So German football then, and the reason I say this because Bayern is somehow German football, or German football is Bayern. It's so into each other. So after the World Cup, they have a big evaluation. Oliver Bierhoff, the head of sport in the FA, had to go. In came all the old guard, and then Minslav also, which left Leipzig, Red Bull Leipzig, to now be the head of everything in terms of sport, culture, TV, and everything at Red Bull in itself. It was a bit fun fact there. So why does this have to do with Bayern? Yes, because the biggest profiles, they play in Bayern. So they start with a draw in Leipzig, which is not bad because it seems that Leipzig could be the main challenger for that. So a point there was not 3 for Leipzig. So that was okay. Then there is another one against Köln, which they were lucky in terms of they didn't create a lot of chances. Joshua Kimmich had a fantastic goal to save them. And then now 1-1 against Frankfurt. And if I saw that game, and it's not that it was undeservedly that my Frankfurt will get a point. So in the middle of everything there, we were talking about the sport. I mean, that if they had 9 points, nobody would speak about Serge Gnabry going to the Fashion Week in Paris. That is just the name of the game. And I've seen someone at the social media have sent tweet to me and say, yeah, but you as a footballer, they had a day off and everything. You should be able to do that. And yes, I was a part of a generation when I went to the pub on Wednesday or I went to a club on Wednesday. Yes, 100% true. I'm not saying that footballers should be put 24/7 into it, but it's about reading the room. It's about Serge Gnabry understand that if you do that, you have to score 3 goals. You have to win football game. And people can say, yeah, but that's not the working rules how they are. No, of course not. But you are not a normal worker. Try to swap with someone doing the renovation of the Autobahn between München and Nuremberg. Then you have a proper job. So a footballer, there are so many signals that you send out. Same with Manuel Neuer. How can you go skiing after that World Cup with the risk of injure yourself? Yes, should any human being be allowed to go skiing? Yes, of course. But when you then get injured, you are out. The last report I read today was that he hoped to be back for the pre-season for next season. When you have to spend 8-9 million euro to get Jan Sommer, give him a 1 or 2 years contract, although he has a clause that he can go. And then at the same time, when Manuel Neuer then weakens his position in Bayern, they fire the goalkeeping coach, Tapalovic, who has been there for 12 years, the best man in his wedding of Neuer, and so on and so on. And Salihamidzic, the head of sport, having a go at the players. Well, then I guess you can say that FC Hollywood is something we love. So that's the yes to your other questions. Of course, the media are bored of Bayern always winning. So then they are looking for weaknesses. So a long answer to your 3-4
a long question, to be fair. So, but if we move on to a place where there seems to be devoid of drama and a team that experienced their challenge in the beginning of season, but since Marco Rose came in, and probably other factors that I'm sure you can disclose as well, RB Leipzig are now, since Rose took over, no team has taken more points. They score goals for fun. They're the team with the most different goal scorers. They're a team with most goals from set pieces, from counterattacks. The range in personnel and types of goals scored in style seems to be thriving at the moment. Are they the most real contender for Bayern, you think?
Absolutely. And I think in general, you can say that if you have a look at the table now, from Eintracht Frankfurt and up, there are so many teams that you just hope not all of them will have a run, but you just hope for them that still 2 or 3 could keep on winning and put Bayern under pressure. The other years you have Dortmund, and if they had a weak period, it was suddenly 6 points, 7 points, 9 points straight ahead. But now you just feel that there are so many teams there that could have a run. Marco Rose, I've always rated. I rated him when he was at Salzburg. Then he went to Gladbach. Then Dortmund paid a clause to get into Dortmund. I always felt that Marco Rose fitted the bill at Dortmund. I thought that was a great signing. For some reason, that didn't work out. There's a lot of things that can be said about that. We have said about it, that all the people in and around the club, that you had Terzic, who is a lifelong Dortmund fan, who was waiting in the range. Not always good position for anyone to be in, to be fair. Then he goes to RB Leipzig and keeps him doing the good work. And I think that he, as people should know or maybe know, that is also part of the Red Bull organization. So he started off in Salzburg, and now he's in Leipzig, which are 2 different clubs, but still with the same owners. So Marco Rose has also a great team with a lot of attackers, and you were saying, and they are good in the defense as well. But I will have the focus on the strikers, because if you see all the strikers they have who can score goals, potential match winners, and Nkunku is going to Chelsea. He's not even playing at the moment. You have a Timo Werner on his way back. Now he is back, but he's been out injured, missed the World Cup. Szoboszlai, I always struggle with that name, scoring his goals. Even Poulsen came on now and scoring goals. And I'm not saying even Poulsen because he's a bad player. I just say even Poulsen because sometimes we forget him on that bill of potential goal scorers. And then you have in Emil Forsberg. I'm not saying he's underrated, but Emil Forsberg is a guy you always have the feeling when he gets the ball that he will create something for you. So I think that RB Leipzig could go all the way could they win the title? Of course they can. They won the Pokal, the ÖFB Pokal, which was a breakthrough for that organization, as the Americans will say. So yes, absolutely. And you just hope that some of these teams can go all the way.
And what about Dortmund then? We had a fantastic story in Sebastian Haller returning to the field. I mean, return before, but starting the game, set up one of the goals with a nice little dummy as well. Bellingham captaining the side, and you'd like to think, when we discussed this before, you'd like to think that Dortmund can give it a push. And they come out and muster a rather convincing 2-0 win against a high-flying Leverkusen. Is that a diagnosis that we can ascertain that maybe Dortmund are back in the fold?
And as Norwegians, we are very happy for Julian Ryerson, who came from Union Berlin, slowly built up his confidence, slowly built up his ability, slowly built up his reputation in Germany. When Munier out, they needed someone to come there. He comes there. He has a perfect nine. They won all games he played. Mm-hmm. He scored his first goal for Dortmund and so on. Yeah. So yes, I think that it was a confirmation what happened with Leverkusen. Leverkusen had won five games in a row, and they did just go there convincingly winning. Adeyemi, who came with the brand of the new starlet of German football, scored his first goal, which is important. As you're saying, Sebastian Haller will be important for them, because Sebastian Haller got something. Not only is he scoring goals, he's a very clever footballer, as you saw with that goal that Adeyemi scored, where he made a dummy. He's more like that kind of his game is more like Lewandowski, that he likes to go down and take the ball, play the balls in. Of course, I love Sebastian Haller from the time he played in Frankfurt. Very good lad, great attitude, and that is one of the stories of football now, that he's healthy and coming back. So yes, they started with not a convincingly win at home in the first game, but that Leverkusen, that was a confirmation, and I think that Dortmund are desperate now to be up there and compete with Bayern, with Leipzig, with Union Berlin, with Frankfurt, and Freiburg.
Let's do Frankfurt then. You have a Haller. They always seem to find good strikers, and I guess that my cue to say that they found it with you too. But you understand, they've always had. They've done some great recruitment through Freddy Bobic and now, etc., with Kirche and everything. You now have a Muani, where they seem to have found gold, and we have been raving on about Muani. But the facts don't lie. 17 games, 7 goals, 10 assists. He seems like a very complete striker, and scored against Bayern at the Allianz Arena as well. What are we thinking with Eintracht? They've also obviously got the Champions League knockouts coming about as well. Which, depending on how you see it, is a plus and a minus for their Bundesliga chances.
Yeah, but it's always a plus, because it's a consequence of what you've done. I mean,
of course,
you've had some ridiculous statements sometimes from coaches. They say they will have to save themselves in Europe to get into Europe for next year. I mean, that is to take it that way. Thank God that Eintracht is playing an easy opponent in the Champions League. It's only Napoli who is flying like for the first time could win to Scudetto since Diego Maradona. But I am a bit ambivalent when I speak about Frankfurt, because I want to praise them so much, but I don't want to praise them away from the club. So I say, when I do, it's not my wishes that's going to happen. First of all, in Markus Fjørtoft, the head of sport, they have maybe the best in Germany at the moment. I have the pleasure to know him. I have the pleasure to discuss a lot of strategy about football by him. He not only has he got a background in football, but he's that science kind of business-like as well. So he got a fantastic mixture of finding the right players. Although I do understand that Muani has been on the radar for a long time in Eintracht, but still he managed to get him there. And then in Oliver Glasner, they have one of the most talented, most. I mean, a lot of clubs will have him on his list. They'll be talking about him. Could replace Potter if worse get even worse at Chelsea. Although I'm not sure about that, because I think if you have Potter in Chelsea, you don't want to go for the same kind of I'm not saying inexperience, but inexperience in the Premier League and on that level. And you know what I'm saying. But Oliver Glasner, with a reputation, German, Austrian coaches have, I'm 100% sure that he will be later rather than sooner, I will hope, as a Frankfurt fan, in the Premier League. But so in Oliver Glasner and in Markus Krösche and a whole institution, the organization of Frankfurt at the moment is excellent. So I think what's happening on the pitch is a consequence of that. And yes, you spoke about Muani. They also today, we are talking on the transfer deadline, Philipp Max, who is a left-footed player from PSV Eindhoven, and played some games for Germany, but Eintracht have had a problem since Kostic on that left side. He can come up and down that left side, so that is good for them. They were lucky in the first game when they beat Schalke. I mean, you can say that everybody should beat Schalke, but they were quite lucky there. And Kevin Trapp was excellent again. But in Freiburg, they got a draw, and then they got a draw, of course, in Bayern, and that added to your self-confidence. You know that you can go wherever to get a result, and I think that is a consequence of the experience they've had in Europe. Because in Europe, you have to get a point or whatever away from home to take them back home, and we know that the stadium of Eintracht is maybe that with the best atmosphere in whole Europe at the moment. So that is not a good place to come, and it's a great advantage for the club. And Eintracht, I mean, can they win the championship? Of course they can. Leicester won the championship, Greece won the Euros and all that. But I think it's more realistic. Will they have the stamina? Will they have the quality to get into Champions League? So I think that is most realistically when you see the table right now.
And let us conclude then in terms of the top six. We got Freiburg as well. No team has conceded less goals than Freiburg, except for Bayern. There I might add. Less goals on the other end, but even still, Freiburg keep on holding on. And what is cool, and lack of a better word, is the likes of a Freiburg and Union Berlin who are showing that it's not a fluke, the fact that they had good seasons last season, etc., etc. They are creating a consistency in a culture, and the same accounts for Freiburg.
Yeah, I can't say it better than you just said it. It's just not a coincidence that they're up there. That is a consequence of great work at the club. There are head of sports that we not even know the names of. There are in Christian Streich, and I spoke about Fischer in Union Berlin. So when you see them and you compare them with Schalke, with Werder Bremen, Hamburger Sportverein in the second league, Stuttgart struggling, I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic for any neutral fans that see that good work works out. Some Rapid leaders, Rapid Vienna leaders, had a go at me because I said in the Austrian media that yes, it's hard to compete with Red Bull in Salzburg. That I understand, but it's a thing that you can do that doesn't cost, and you have to be world class doing that. And I think Freiburg and Union Berlin is doing that.
Absolutely. If we look towards the rest, then I've picked out a few pointers. First of all, we've raved about the youngsters in the Bundesliga. Florian Wirtz is back playing, and has been involved playing. What can we say about a player like that? Surely a player that Germany could have benefited from the World Cup, but seeing him back now, how do we see his pathway now, from now till the rest of the season, next season, in terms of where he could head?
I think next season will be the main thing for him, because you need somehow, when you've been injured, to build up your balance or your way of playing. That is, and he is a street footballer. He's a Straßenfußballer, they say. He's a guy that need to find his touch, find everything that was the branding of Florian Wirtz. But what is unbelievable in Germany, Markus, and I know you share this, because I remember when I start, and I've said this before, but I will certainly say it again. The great thing is when you come to Germany, because you don't have the amount of money that you have other places. Yes, there are a lot of foreigners coming in to German football as well, but you've got so many young talents. And at the moment in Musiala, in Florian Wirtz, and of course in Jude Bellingham, you have three of the most wanted players in international football, and they are playing in Germany. Of course, for Florian Wirtz, he would be at least 100% in the squad, maybe also a starter for Germany if he was fit. But he's shown that he's working his way back, and with Alonso, no, I didn't say Alonso, yeah, the Leverkusen coach,
Xabi Alonso, yeah.
Alonso, how can I say Alonso? Alonso, I knew there was something wrong when I said when Alonso, you have an experienced footballer who have played for the best clubs in the world. You have won all the trophies, and yes, they're lost now, but it seems that he will slowly get into his game. It was funny because I just made a short video on our channel last week, and I was praising Kovac in Wolfsburg and Alonso in Leverkusen with 6 in a row for Wolfsburg, 5 in a row for Leverkusen, former footballers and all that. But of course, Füllkrug, our main man.
That was going to bring me on. We cannot go on this episode without mentioning him, Dad. We can't.
We can't.
We just love him, because he's so not your stereotypical star, but now he's top scorer in the Bundesliga, 13 goals, past Nkunku, who's obviously been injured, but even still, his penalty record is sublime. And now, like you said, they turn it around. And that's what I think is funny about football is Werder Bremen were so out of form. 17 goals conceded in the last 4 games. Wolfsburg turn around the ship, 6 straight Bundesliga wins. And then somehow Bremen get their much needed win in terms of avoiding getting stuck in that relegation battle.
And I think why we so like Füllkrug is that he is somehow not an anti-footballer, but an anti-footballing career. Is someone you don't hear about in an age that where people are start thinking about the pension and retiring. He will maybe win the top scorer title. He will probably shoot Werder Bremen to a safe place. He did well for Germany, one of the few, together with Musiala, maybe 1 or 2 more, who did well at the World Cup. And he's just that footballer that you love to see succeed. Every generation will have that kind of player. He is a cult hero somehow. I grew up, that was Preben Elcher, was a Danish player who smoked and loved his smoke and was saying to everybody that he smoked, and that's why I'm doing this and that. And you always got these kind of players, and he's a cult hero in Germany, and now 2 goals. And
yeah, but
as you were saying,
do you think he will? Do you think he might leave Bremen, get his big move?
Yeah, it's been a lot of speculation about that. I was traveling, of course, this weekend. I was in Austria this time, in Vienna, and I, of course, read all the magazines that I still love to get on my travels, and there was a lot of speculation in and around Füllkrug. Nah, it's not that, not in terms of quality. I mean, if you see Choupo-Moting playing for Bayern, you know that if Füllkrug played for Bayern, he would score 20, 25 goals because he's a proven goal scorer. He's a guy that can help any team with his abilities to play because he's a very smart player as well. But I think it seems very realistic. He's getting to 30. He's playing for Werder Bremen, and for the young listeners, Werder Bremen is one of the big clubs in Germany, against a bit all odds, but with an Otto Rehhagel and a lot of great footballers, with Schaaf winning the Bundesliga for them the last. So he's in a good place. It's a good stadium. It's a good football stadium. So you somehow feel, but I can't remember if I spoke to Füllkrug, but I got the impression when seeing him in the media, seeing him in his interview, he's that guy who can certainly say, well, I'll sign a 5-year contract for Werder Bremen, and afterwards I will work as head of marketing or whatever, do something about in Werder Bremen. So, but of course, he is a guy that can score goals. Sometimes I'm speaking for the striker union. When I played in England, especially, I played for clubs in the lower part of a table, and I have to say, without praising myself too much, but it's quite hard scoring goals for teams in the lower part of the table. So 2 goals for Werder Bremen is 4 for Bayern. Absolutely
incredible. As we draw to a close, we can also say that we cannot, for the striker union, we cannot mention when a striker doesn't have a hat trick, which Oneosu did for Mainz against Bochum. So fair play to him. He looked very, very sharp against Bochum. And then Gladbach notched, but unbelievably enough, their first away win of the season against Hoffenheim with a double. That draws us to a close. Anything to conclude on? Any departing message before we see each other next week?
Yeah, but because both of you, me and you, we're in two different countries. We have two different jobs, I have a lot of jobs and different things that I do. So sometimes the recording of our podcast is not always great timed, but it's on a transfer deadline day. So still some hopes as we are speaking. I also look forward to my friend Fabrizio Romano can have 3 hours sleep. Maybe he will get that after he close the window. But it's also in Germany, they are very intense. They are doing what they call the Englische Woche. The English week for them is to play 3 games in a week, which they do in England all the time. But for the Germans, they're doing that. And this week, as we speak, they're going to be a cup game this week, the Pokal. And Bayern will be in Mainz, and yes, you were saying that Mainz is a team that is hard to play against, and so I will leave you with the words that Julian Nagelsmann, I always say the Mozart of football or Harry Potter of football, he's struggling. He's struggling because in the first season he won the league, and in Bayern they will say the bus driver could win the league, so that is no problem. You have to win the double at least. He didn't. You have to win the Champions League. Well, they went out to Villarreal. So this week is also decisive for Julian Nagelsmann, because what they are saying and what we understand is that although he cost 20 million euro, which was a record fee for a coach from going from RB Leipzig to Bayern, his job, that is not a job guarantee. As we saw this week with my friend Freddy Bobic, who got fired as a head of sport in Berlin, things can happen unexpectedly. And if you then plus this math with a Tuchel without job, German chick, a Jurgen Klopp that is struggling at Liverpool, do I think that he will go to Bayern? No, of course not. He will stay at Liverpool. But I'm just saying that the media stories are going now in and around Bayern and Munich. So I guess Julian Nagelsmann should do well to win that game in Mainz and not get knocked out of a tournament.
Some good departing words as we look ahead to the German Cup. Dad, thanks so much for sitting down with me. We will get this out ASAP so we can get this out before the transfer deadline.
Please.
Yes, and then we'll follow up if any more sensational transfers happen in around the Bundesliga. Until next time.
Auf Wiedersehen.